Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hustle Up podcast, dedicated to those who wake up early, get there early, and stay late. My name is Clint
Jonathan Hessing,
and today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Carved.
That's C-A-R-V 3D.
That is a shameless plug. These are my pens. I've known Jonathan for 4 years now, and pretty much since I've known him, we have talked about creating a podcast. So here we are. We're going to talk to you about the law of attraction, manifestation, metaphysics, tech, music, pop culture, the hustle, and the grind.
So, what we want to do is have open conversation with each other. Where this whole thing came from was we had so many phone calls together and so many times spent together having conversations about everything on all sides of the spectrum, from politics to entertainment and everything in between. And we were like, why not share these conversations? And in under a month we got together and we decided we were going to do it. So here we are, ready to talk about with you guys the things that we talk about amongst ourselves and with our friends. And we hope you guys find value in it, motivation, find out stuff you didn't know about. And I'm sure we're going to come across stuff we don't know about. So we got Google pulled up, ready to learn, and I hope we all learn together. And, I think the first thing we should talk about is, I don't know, what do you want to talk about?
Audio in particular. If you're tuning in for the first time, I hope you listen to more podcasts, watch more YouTube videos. It definitely accelerated my ability to learn and my learning experience. We were talking about this in the car earlier today. When you have something like a podcast, you can focus on it and another task, driving, work in some cases. When you're watching a video or you're reading a book, or even when you're watching a movie, you're there. You're in that experience. There may be other things that you can tune into here and there, but particularly when you're driving in the car, audio accelerates that timeline. Audio books, good podcasts, something informational to consume while you were doing something that was boring before.
I've heard that conceptualized as being called passive information. And I like to listen to music in the car, so I'm guilty there. But when I go to the gym, I'm listening to podcasts more. It's just like you're saying, you can be doing other things while you're intaking this information. And I was watching a Jordan Peterson video once on YouTube, and he was talking about how the fluctuation between taking information, passive information is, and then whatever the opposite of that would be. So I guess just flat out reading or watching something that takes all of your attention as opposed to being passive.
What's the movie where the guy takes the pill? Limitless. Where he can recall all the information that he took in through one sense or another after he's taken the pill. Well, at this point, I'm consuming roughly 8 hours of audio every day, and not outside of music. So I hope that Limitless pill comes out.
Let me ask you this though: if you're doing 8 hours a day for passive information, how many hours a day are you giving? Let's call it focused information, where it's not in a passive environment. You're reading a book and it's got your undivided attention.
I read for an hour a day.
Okay.
I actually read a book, sit down and read something.
So would you say you're passive 8 hours a day and focused 1 hour a day, or 1 hour a day?
I think the passive surpasses the focused.
Okay.
Because I can consume so much more information at such a faster rate through audio than taking my 1 hour of focused reading or my 1 hour of focused researching. That narrows me in on something specific, but even then, that's something that you have to study. You might just read and it gets stored for a moment, or you highlight something. I think active reading in particular accelerates the ability to retain the information that you're reading. But when I'm in the car listening to podcasts, in particular when I'm in the car, I'm in sales, I'm an entrepreneur, and the amount of time that I spend driving from one place to another is, it's substantial. So when I'm in the car or at the gym and I can consume this audio, that seems to be the most focused for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think For me, it's kind of like the same thing, a very similar split. I'll listen to Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan all day at work, just have it passively while I'm doing spreadsheets or whatever I'm doing, following up on our CRM. But then when I read, it's like just more focused, like intricacies of that. And Jordan Peterson, when he was talking about in his video once, he was saying that when you watch a video, even if it's that focus and it's not that passive information, like it's not just playing in the background, like you're focusing on it, you're getting the message, but you're getting it in 2.5 hours. There's not much redundancy there. When you read a book, it may start to seem similar chapter after chapter, but it's reconceptualizations of a principle that it's hammering into your head chapter after chapter after chapter. And when you have that kind of redundancy and you take information in that way, it's much more likely to stick on your conscience. Whereas your subconscious, you're just kind of feeding it consistently through passive information. So that's why I see it not as being an either or type thing, but you should do both, because one helps you kind of with the algorithms of your subconscious, and the other one is more of, you're more aware of patterns and consciously able to act on those things and think similar patterns.
No, that's absolutely right. Speaking of Joe Rogan, my 3 go-tos, at least for the moment, are Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and Ben Shapiro. We consume a lot. Honestly, we send each other videos all the time. We consume a lot of the same content. One of the things about Joe Rogan in particular that makes his podcast such a beast is he's a funny enough guy, he's an interesting enough guy, and he's a smart enough guy. But the level of people that he brings on his show are oftentimes world-class experts in sleep, experts in neuroscience, experts in mushrooms, mycelial fungi. It's an interesting way to learn about something that you would have never had exposure to through long-form conversation, which is missing in a lot of the elements of today. It's refreshing that he's popularizing this and bringing it to mainstream. Coming up, we're going to have experts on the grind, the hustle, sales, other entrepreneurs. By the way, if you didn't know this, I'm an entrepreneur, Hessing's an entrepreneur, and we are big believers in creating a life by design instead of living your life on default. Creating value in the marketplace through the process of market-based management or creative destruction. We're also big fans of Kaizen, or continuous improvement, the process of getting better at getting better.
Absolutely. Life is just it's a growth. And I think it's important to know that it's cyclical, and you're going to have good and you're going to have bad. But the important thing is not to ride that to its extremities. It's not to completely overindulge in the good and then get depressed or anxious in the bad or the terrible. But it's to baseline how you handle situations and keep everything moving. Just keep going forward, because any progression is solid progression. Anything is successful as long as you're growing, you're learning, you're reflecting and getting ready for the next stage. And I know personally, I've had a lot of adversity going through this entrepreneurship journey from day one. I started with no connections, no money. I was in my last semester of college for a business management degree, so I didn't have any experiential knowledge. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't know how to do it. I just knew why I wanted to do something and what it was. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. But when you know your why, I mean, that's as cliche as it sounds, that's what's going to keep you going through those extremely highs and those extreme lows. As long as you know your why and you keep going. And I think that's important to know, like he said, to achieve Kaizen and keep moving forward. And I'm sure you've hit a lot of obstacles in your journey as well.
Oh, plenty. Yeah.
What do you think your biggest one was that I don't want to say that you thought it was over at, but that you were like, okay, this has to work out. Like the Vikings burn the boat mentality, like we're going to war, burn the boats, the only way is to win or die.
Yeah, so I bought another company, and at that moment I was in a bidding war with several other companies. I'm in the rental business. A rental company went out of business, and I was in a bidding war for their assets and their customer list and the whole deal. And in that moment, I knew this has to work out. A, it was a large investment, but B, the type of equipment that we were acquiring gets us into a larger market. So one of my big plans for everybody is the music festival market. I am seeking these types of customers. I'm going after these types of relationships, and the equipment that it takes to build large scale tents, hundreds of 10 by 10 vendor tents, flooring. With any type of job, or really with any business, the larger the event, the larger the job, the harder the task, the fewer competitors you're going to see competing or bidding on the process. We were bidding on the equipment that very few people own or have or carry in stock. And it was taking a risk that we were even going to be able to rent it out. Now, luckily we did. We made it happen. But that was one of my burn the bridges, burn the boats.
Yeah, don't burn bridges.
Yeah, don't burn bridges. In fact, that brings to another topic. I do see a lot of people firing friends these days, being willing to burn bridges. And one thing that's on my mind is to never burn a bridge, ever. You're only building bridges.
Hold on real quick. When you say firing friends, do you mean moving from a perceived toxic environment? Or do you mean like literally I have a friend working for me in my corporation and I need to let him go?
So I am, that's a tough one. That happens. I'm specifically talking about toxic environments, toxic friends, and the idea that you are telling somebody, I'm going to spend less time with you. That's a burning of a bridge of sorts to me.
Absolutely.
Whereas, I mean, you could just actually spend less time with them or limit the amount of time that you spend with people.
So do you think that that's an over dramatized Hollywood, cliche thing to say is dump your friends, dump your situation, and completely turn a new head towards a new life if you want to achieve this state of whatever? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
As well as an insecurity, a major insecurity. That's a personal flaw.
I really think it's like, I agree with you. It's like, why say anything? Why say I have to cut you off for this reason? That's not.
If you want to hang out with me, you got to come up. I'm no longer coming down.
But you're not gonna, but you don't, like, where I come from, like where I'm coming from is you don't necessarily have to say anything. Just start doing what's gonna bring you up, and they're either gonna ride that with you and remain a part of in your environment, which that shows growth in someone, and that's someone I would want around me. But if not, then the natural occurrence of events will lead them out. There's no reason to break up with them.
Oh, no need at all. And actions speak louder than words.
Facts.
If you just stop hanging out with somebody, they're going to notice. Or if you start going to the types of events that they maybe necessarily don't go to, they're going to see that even more. Wow, this person's making themselves better. What am I doing today? It's a natural consequence.
Yeah, and I mean, that, like, everything comes back to life being cyclical. Like, yes, there's going to be goods and bads, but another dimension of that is because you're just moving and things are fluctuating, your focus and what intrigues you is going to change. And I believe life is just a series of changing perspectives. And with changing perspectives comes a difference in focus and awareness of patterns. And with that comes the people, situations, and anything that exists that you manifest in. It just changes as you refocus and your brain, assimilates into new environments in these different phases of life. You're going to manifest different things in, and it's going to be similar people, similar thoughts, similar situations, but it's also going to be a change where some things are going to drop off and other new things are going to be born. But, that's like, I was talking about this with some of my friends the other day. That's why having good friends with similar morals and ambitions is the fluctuating part, but morals is something that kind of runs you through the whole way. You see what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, I'm down to experiment and go as far as I can into other countries or do whatever it takes in my life, but there's certain, like, moral lines that I won't cross.
Like what?
I would say that loyalty is probably that is something that I am most focused on within myself, and then within those closest to me. And I think that was something that was taught from my family. So it's just always been in there. But like loyalty, like no matter how much money, no matter anything, like I am loyal to whoever I started something with. And so it's like, I don't care. Like I'll go take meetings. I'll go do things. I'll do things. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you want to get involved with me in this capacity, this is what the baggage, not in a bad term, not in a bad way at all, but this is what the people I'm with. This is the team I'm with. This is what's happening. You're not going to pull a lead singer from a band in my world.
Give some of those friends a shout out. They'll probably watch this.
Man, I'll just name all my friends, like everyone in my circle. Like I could sit here and name names all day long. Like
you know who you are.
You know who you are. Like I've got people in my circle that all like pertain in different capacities. Like I've got like he was saying, we're entrepreneurs. I've got a technology company. That's my first one. That's my first like big bread and butter, like right there. I've got a video marketing company, so right there is 2 separate groups. I've got a core friend group, which is a brotherhood. That's another group. So it's like there's all these dimensions of, if you want me for this capacity, these people are coming. If you want me in this capacity, these people are coming. These people are coming with me through my whole life. And it's just
the
like
whole team signed up.
Exactly. And so it's like characteristics like that. But the reason these people all share is because I perceive them as having that similar characteristic of loyalty. Because again, like that's what I try my hardest to live out into, because I know that after all the money comes and goes, and after all everything that comes and goes that's not permanent, your friends and the ones that were most loyal to you, and you know, like your family, and you know, whatever is there at the end will be there at the end, when everything else kind of seems to simmer out and phase out. And I think that what holds those people closest to you is the morals. It's not the ambitions, it's not the focus, because again, that's all cyclical. It's not what you like to do, that's cyclical. It's who you are as an individual, that and how ultimately your decision making works out, that like as who you are and who you make decisions morally and ethically, that brings your closest friends and family together.
Well, what do you think about the idea of different personality types and different personality types matching up well as friends in general, or the idea that shared experiences can link you? For example, I have several close friends from high school. Didn't see them all throughout college. We kept in touch some, but then after college we reconnect, and it's just like picking up where we left off. The morals may have changed. We may disagree on a few things, but there's some shared common connection, or some type of, maybe you share the same humor, or there's something about it that you can pick up where you left off and keep engaging with that friend.
That's definitely, I don't know, dude, because I think about that and I'm like, do I have any, because I can only speak on my personal perspective. Do I have relationships where I'm only friends with someone because they're funny, especially if it's one where I don't see them often?
Not quite, but in the situation where maybe y'all had grown apart, and then you're like, oh yeah, I remember why I like this person. Like we had grown apart, but we still get along really well.
Yeah, but then, okay, and I hate to use this as an example, and it's just an extreme, but then do I hang out with that person for 4 more times in a month, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is why we don't hang out much anymore?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's very situational.
Sure.
It's very situational, but to me, and what I've noticed is like the friends that have a similar moral compass are the ones that are going to be like closest together. Like if you value loyalty, number one, there's a good chance that you and I are going to be like very bonding together. If this is something that's new to me. Like I never had this mindset, is what Gary Vee says with the rule of 51-49. In any relationship you enter into, be it friend, be it romantic, be it business, always just give 1% more than you're getting. And like, that's like, other than loyalty, I would say that's like my number 2 thing, is like, now that I have this new mindset and I have this awareness pattern of how I want to look at it, and I know that when I give my friends stuff, it feels good. I know when I decide to throw something away as opposed to throw it out of the window of my car, and I give it to the trash and I don't give it to the earth, it makes me feel better. I just know that me giving a little bit more than I'm getting, it makes me feel better. And so that's the kind of energy I want around me. So I say that that's like another characteristic.
What do you think about friends based on intelligence level? I think
that's important.
All of my friends happen to be pretty smart. in different ways, some in other ways than others, but they're all pretty smart.
So let me shoot that back to you. How do you define intelligence in this specific scenario?
Well, conversationally first. The people that I spend the most time around, I'm able to have the best conversations with.
Intellect? Is that what?
Intellect?
Is that what that would be?
Conversationalist, intellect, wit.
Okay.
I think humor works into there, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Or the ability to bring up complex topics, and open-mindedness to explore issues that don't get talked about that often.
Yeah. No. Open-mindedness is a good one. I had an experience not too long ago where I realized that open-mindedness helps you experience things more. And when you experience things more, you become open-mindedness. So it's like an infinity symbol. Like the more you do this, the more the other one gets. The more you give there, the more the other one gets. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that right there, like, allows you to be open-mindedness to see different parallels in things, as opposed to having a very singular view of how something could work. It allows you to see many things and how many things work, and find the parallels and congruencies amongst them, whether it's like, just to focus this a little more, you could see things in a scientific, a religious, and a philosophical perspective, and triangulate similar concepts and principles and boil those down and adopt those as truths for yourself.
And closed-minded people don't go to music festivals. They don't find new things that they enjoy. Open-mindedness would be a key to enjoying life.
Absolutely, and a very important key to experiencing success in relationships. Like, as far as like being open-minded to, I'll take, like, if you have like a romantic, like a relationship, like, be open-minded to moving wherever to continue a life somewhere if it's the better opportunity. If it's a business relationship, be open to going to every meeting, whether you obviously do your due diligence on it so you don't waste time, but if you have a gut feeling, like, move forward and being open-minded, even though there may be no presentable, like, I should go meet with this person, but I don't know if they're exactly, something that fits into what I'm doing right now. Go take that meeting. If it's within reason, go take that meeting anyway, because you never know what the situation may be. You don't know who they know. You don't know how you can help them. There's different variables that, so that's like a romantic and a business one, like friends, like, be willing to go out anytime, like, go experience life. Like, recently I realized that, and you probably have a similar experience, but when I started doing the entrepreneurship thing, like, I sacrificed my social life completely. And because you were one of the only friends that I had at the time. Yeah, and in doing that, all I did was intook information, both passively and focused. And I felt, I now see that my IQ went up in certain regards, but my EQ and how I was able to be around people didn't kind of, simmer down. And I think it's muscle memory. It's a repetitious type of
social
thing.
Fluidity takes practice like anything else. When you're in it, when you're hanging out with people, when you're talking to people, especially when it comes to making small talk, I find the less I hang out around other human beings, the less tolerance I have for small talk. If we're not getting into a deep conversation and quickly, it can feel like a waste of my time. But the more time I do spend with other people, the more time I'm able to navigate through small talk and get to the meat of a subject.
So how would you navigate, like, how would you go, if you're just meeting someone cold, how would you go from a small talk to, like, what are some of your questions or things that you say to show them that you have similar language of what you want to talk about?
This is key. I'm direct right off the bat. I introduce, hi, I'm Clint. And if they don't introduce themselves, I ask them, what's your name? And I smile at them right off the bat. You're trying to break defense and build trust from the initial handshake, from the first time you make contact with their skin. Hold eye contact, be confident. But with anybody, networking is key, and you want them to do two things. You want them to talk about themselves so you can actually learn information about them, and you want them to trust you if you're a trustable person or a trustworthy person. So I ask people questions about themselves and get them into the rhythm of talking about themselves. And a lot of times we won't even talk about me, but for some reason I come across as more interesting to that person, or they remember me because instead of walking up and say, "Hi, I'm Clint, I sell bullshit, it's, "Hey, who are you? What do you do? Do you have a business card? All right, what's your website? What is your product? Do you believe in your product? Why do you believe in your product?" And the series of questions gets them more comfortable talking to you about themselves. In general, people like to talk about themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many times do you experience a day, like, you know, someone says, "How are you?" and then just turns their head? There's a lot of times a day that people are listening as a formality, or they're listening to speak next, but seldom are people listening to understand you. And so when you learn sales, or when you just learn communication, you got, like, it's important to know that people want to express themselves, but are never really given the avenue to do that. So if you yourself are a good listener, you are now providing them with some place for them to talk about something with. And if you can even take what they're saying and process it and be genuinely interested in what they're saying, that's how you make real conversation that can push past the surface. Is you could start with, you know, something very surface as you perceive it, but you listen to them, keep them going, hear what they have to say, and then, you know, keep asking questions that dive deeper and deeper and deeper. And, you know, another good thing to point out is the importance of questions.
Oh, absolutely.
When I was building the company in the early days, I knew that because of my lack of experience and connections and money and everything, the best thing I could do was build an experienced team around me. And one thing I always told them was, like, look, I'm young, I've got Google. Finding answers to questions is not hard, especially when you're as hungry and passionate as I am.
We have the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips, the Encyclopedia Britannica right there. We're the first generation in all of history to have instant access to information on demand all the time.
Without moving.
It's
amazing. Yeah, like, it's insane. You literally don't have to move your feet, and you can find out anything in the world. All you've got to do is be hungry enough to not stop looking for as many questions as you could be getting, and keep getting yourself more questions. So I would tell these people, I'm like, look, I can find the answers to these questions, but it's only experience that can bring the questions. And in a life and in an industry guided by the questions you ask, having experienced people who you deem as being credible. And before I diverge, you know, too quickly, Ray Dalio's book Principles talks about that, and he calls it an idea meritocracy. And so that, we'll just segue there, but essentially, you know, it's really all about guiding and figuring out the right questions to ask, because when you know the questions to ask, the answers come in ways that are conducive to helping you achieve or get to wherever you want to go, be whoever you want to be. It'll just help. And so what Ray Dalio talks about in his book is the idea meritocracy, which is where you get, your sources are the people that you deem credible. And it's not quite a democracy where everyone has say so, but it's not a, you know, monarchy where there's one ruler. It's an idea meritocracy where you deem people credible enough from your perspective or your organization, and you figure out, who do I need to triangulate and circumvent information through? Who are the people that are going to, that if they give me the best feedback, you know, I could essentially think of it as like a panel on YouTube. Do you ever watch panels on YouTube?
Give me an example.
Like, talking about the hologram theory or dimensions, and it's, you know, 4 physicists sitting up on a stage talking. You know, one of them's got a book about one way, one of them's got 55 papers published about another one. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I saw that video with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's an idea meritocracy, is you're taking these people who by your senses you have deemed credible, and you're circumventing the information through them, and then by that you can come up with your own truth.
Yeah.
Or your own pattern.
And I don't know about you, but in particular, I work out a lot of my ideas through conversation with other people. So
Yes.
you got to be careful not to end up in an echo chamber. I have to be careful not to end up in an echo chamber. So if I talk to somebody with one political view, I try to talk to somebody who holds an opposite political view. If I'm talking to somebody who's big government or capitalism or socialism or any number of ideas in the sphere, you want to work out your own ideas by talking to other people, preferably people smart or smarter than you are, to help you form your own take on the world. Take the best parts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess that's to tie it back to our original index of ideas. That's kind of a little bit through metaphysics, and hustle and grind, which are very, congruent with each other. We talked about how we overcame adversity through managing our emotions and doing all these different things through our and not burning bridges. Like, that's very important stuff that we covered. And if anyone is in an entrepreneurial journey, or even just trying to make better of any kind of life you're in, I think that the big key principles that we talked about in this first segment is not burning bridges,
build bridges,
ask the right questions,
network often. Should have been writing these down. We'll do that next time. We told you that we were going to talk about the law of attraction as well earlier on, and I've got my own stories. Hessing has manifested some crazy realities. What's a good, and I know you've got a bunch, what is one good example of how you use the law of attraction, the secret, the master key system? What's one good example of how you manifested a life by design from up here?
Okay, so taking the law of attraction and making it something practical.
Yeah.
Like, what patterns did I start acting differently on to get to? I think one thing was, this is more of a metaphysical one, but I'll break it down, was when we first got our original funding in February 2016, we moved into the house.
Yeah.
We moved into the house. The idea of moving into the house was three of us, my two co-founders, Austin Schmidt and Zuneri Connie. We moved into a house, and our thing was that we all were coming from the same fraternity together. Clint and I were in the same fraternity. We were all in the same fraternity. It seems to have started a lot of things. But we realized that if we were going to be, in the guys who lived in the fraternity house back in the day were the ones who cared the most and did the most. And our idea behind that was, if we could live together, there would be nonstop creation and innovation and evolution of what we wanted to do.
The creatosphere.
The creatosphere, absolutely, and that's what it was. And so over time, we eventually had about 6 other people live in there. We turned our living room, we put a bunk bed up there, and we had people move in, and we essentially brought on a team and compensated them with letting them live in the house. And in the basement of the house, we had put whiteboards up all over the walls, and that was a literal creatosphere.
It was super cool. It was really cool, yeah.
And then in the garage, I actually had ripped out a whole closet and turned it into a music studio. We put flooring down, and it ended up being an awesome situation. And over, and then you have your life cycle, and we went through things for the next year and a half. And then I remember one morning I got a call saying that an investment wasn't going through. And this investment, we had gotten a multi-million-dollar verbal confirmation on it. And over a month, it had dwindled down to a single-digit multi-million-dollar thing. And then after that, it had completely fallen through. And I remember I had a swollen lymph node. I was sick as shit that morning. And I got a phone call at 7 in the morning saying, hey, it wasn't going to work out. And I just remember, that may have been the last time I, got close to crying or teared up. And I called my dad, and I was like, look, man, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, you can do 2 things. You can chill for a little bit and keep it moving, or you can just get up, keep it moving, and by keeping it moving, you're keeping it moving better. And I was like, that's a good point.
Right, Dad.
I hung up, and
that's good fatherly advice.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome. My dad just has he's with it. So he tells me, and so I get up, and I've got a networking event that day. I had to be there at 8, and I was like, I gotta get my shit together and do this like that. I went there. It was a Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce for smart cities. And everyone's going around doing introductions, and this guy with a curly mustache and a fedora puts his hand up in the air.
We're going to have him on the show.
He will be here. His name's Foz Saeed. He will be on this show. Foz Rock. He puts his hand up and he starts talking about how he does both things on the music side and on the technology side. Well, at the time we had an app that was doing live streaming of concerts where you could pick your perspective of where you wanted to watch from. So when this guy came up and said that he was doing music and technology, I was like, you're perfect. You're exactly who I need to be talking to. And a month and a half later, him and his family had invested in our company and moved us into an office in Duluth. And in the office they moved us, we got a whole half of a bottom floor of an office building. We moved over here, and across the hall was a music studio that people who have Grammys come in and out of and do studio time all the time. And in hindsight, when I had realized this, I was like, wow, because of certain actions that I took because of a goal I wanted to get to, I now had a real music studio, not a basement or not a garage music studio, across the hall from my office, which was no longer in a basement, but which was an actual office. So I manifested a office basement. Let me say we, because the people who were involved in my life, we all were doing that. We manifested an office basement and garage studio into the studio we're recording this in right now, across the hall from the office, in the office building we're in right now. And I would say that that is my greatest testament and affirmation to the law of attraction and how it can both metaphysically and practically change the reality you're in. So, I was a little long-winded with that, but it's a very emotional story for me, and I'm glad you asked that question.
It's a good story.
Yeah. So, let me flip that back to you. And what is your biggest testament of the law of attraction?
So I'm going to go with, there's two good examples, and I can't say whether or not this is the biggest testament to the law of attraction, but I've always thought that when you meditate on something, if you don't take specific actions toward that goal, that meditation, that prayer, whatever it is you want, nothing's going to happen. It's like you got to put this thought toward it, and then you have to picture what you want and how it's going to look. Then you have to take actionable steps toward reaching that goal. It actually gets pretty simple. Just move forward a little bit at a time. When I was 3 years ago, I was at a music festival here in Atlanta. Yes. And I looked around.
What music festival was it?
It was Imagine Music Festival. That's right. Shout out to Imagine Music Festival.
Yes, sir.
I was at this festival, and I looked around, and I saw tents, I saw tables, I saw chairs, I saw flooring, and it was all in the quantity of equipment that I had in my warehouse that I was renting out to weddings, to corporate events, to food festivals. And the idea, something clicked and said, we've got the capability, and I go to these things fairly regularly. Why not combine two things that I love, work and play? So within a month, I started putting the energy out there. Hey, I need to meet with somebody from Imagine. Hey, I need to get in touch with the decision maker or the purchaser for the tents. And really quickly, one of the guys on my team got us a meeting with the owner of the festival. Within 6 months, we had a contract signed. We're making it happen. And that festival and that project are two of my favorite experiences every year. We've done it 2 complete times now. We're going for the 3rd.
Let's go.
And that was actionable steps. I started telling people, hey, I want to get in front of this person. I didn't actually get in touch with him and get in front of him, but somebody heard what I was saying and they said, I know someone who works for him. Let me give him a call. That person gives somebody a call. Before you know it, we're standing in a room with the person who makes the decision and we're pitching. There's half of it's luck and half of it's the skill to seize the opportunity in the moment. Luck favors the prepared. And if you're prepared, then luck seems to find you at the same time. Another good example, somewhat recently, I've been trying to decide, how are we going to scale? How are we going to grow? What does the next move at this business look like? And I've been telling all my friends. I've been telling everybody I know. Whether you're a friend or not, it looks like hiring another salesperson. It looks like hiring more ops team. It looks like getting a bigger warehouse. There are these 3 things that need to happen in order for us to grow into the company that I think we're going to be in 5, 10 years. And then as I'm putting that energy out there, there is a saleswoman who used to work for another company that I wanted to hire. I said, man, I would kill to get her on the team. What's she up to these days? And somebody else told me, well, you know, she's looking for a job. She is great at what she does, and she happened to be searching for a job. So a week later, we had an interview. We hired her on the spot, and it was another trajectory toward growth just by putting energy out into the universe and then seizing opportunity or capitalizing on a moment. When we saw it was there, we didn't wait.
Yeah, and a couple things you said that are kind of like quotable things that I like, concepts that I love is luck favors the prepared.
Big time.
I've heard another quote that says pretty much identical to that is luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
I've heard another one that luck is the residue of design.
There you go. So it's like, it's almost
preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of where the antiquated thinking is that luck is the cause, and however whatever the luck brings you is the effect. But really, luck is the effect.
Yeah.
It's the effect of being prepared and creating that life of design.
Preparation is the cause.
As soon as you start putting more towards something, it seems that opportunities and things start coming out of left field that you weren't even fathoming before, and now they're right here in front of you. Another thing you said is when you brought the worlds of play and the worlds of work together.
Yeah. It's the same thing here.
It is. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. But the way you conceptualize it is, I bring the worlds of play and then the worlds of work together. And that's a big thing that I have, which you hear me talking about all the time, is work hard, play hard is antiquated. What that says is work all you can so you can play, but always have work coming first. And like I was saying earlier, and you were touching on too, is that things will change, things will fade, but not everything. What money brings you and what those kind of experiences that aren't necessarily spiritual ones or that don't have much feeling attached but are quick to come and quick to go, those will come and go. But the play part is what's important. The play part is like who you're playing with and making sure that nothing like money, in this specific case, money comes in first. You know, and that brings me to a type of transition here. When you're actually on the grind and not like, hey, I'm on a Monday to Thursday grind, the never not working grind. My cell phone is never turned off. We are always responding to something. There are emails to get to. There are customers to serve. Yep. When you're on your never not working entrepreneurial grind, you have to play. You absolutely have to reward yourself. I see a big movement with today's millennial entrepreneurs that, hey, we're going to hustle, we're going to grind for the next 5 years. And look, Gary Vee preaches this. So, I mean, I understand the input is coming in this way. No. If you are really on the grind and you're getting after it, go reward yourself. Take a trip, go to a music festival, hit a concert. If you're not into those things, go to a bar with friends and let loose every now and again. It's that type of reward that's going to keep you from getting separated from reality. It's not the separation from reality that's going to make you zillions of dollars. It's being integrated and working hard, the balance. And on top of it being intrinsic motivation, it's like I was mentioning earlier, like the more I wanted to sacrifice my social life and build my IQ, because I was all about the entrepreneurs have to hustle and eat the shit for 5 years to make it. Don't get me wrong. Hashtag depressed. Exactly. That's the quickest way to get depressed. And now here's the funny thing is now when I'm in a position where for the last few years everything I learned I have to put into action, I'm having to relearn things that I was naturally equipped with in a social capacity. Yeah. So it's like beyond the motivational factors, by sacrificing your life to eat the shit and make it for 5 years. And like you were saying, don't get us wrong. We're not saying don't work as hard. You have to never not be working. I moved into a house for 2 years to make it happen. He moved out of a whole ecosystem he was in with his friends to make it happen. You still have to do things, but you don't need to completely sacrifice one for the other. It's a spectrum. If hustle is work here, or let's use Ray Dalio's spectrum of influence the world and save her life.
Yeah.
Just find at that moment to get to where you want to go with a mean average of your long-term and short-term in mind. Again, another spectrum. Figure out where you want that. And then figure out your spectrum of where do I need to be on this spectrum of influence the world to save her life.
Yeah.
Put yourself there and stick to it by all means necessary. Do that. If you can stick to that and stay disciplined in keeping that balance, you'll be fine. But and like Clint brought up, I can only attest to it because I'm having to go relearn things that I was natural at, is do not ever sacrifice one thing for another. Yeah. Just find where your truth is and where you exist within that.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And look, if you fall on a savor life scale that you are perfectly happy with, then that's a life by design.
Yes.
That counts. If what you're going for is what you want, then you're already winning. But if you're not, then you can't complain about it. You got to get up and do something. That's the only taking actionable steps toward the life that you want, toward the career that you want, towards the relationships that you want. That's how you're advancing.
Yeah, and so back to what we were saying about
see how we are on time.
Yeah, the work hard, play hard thing is antiquated. It's no longer work hard, play hard. It's play hard, work harder. Always be working harder than you're playing, but always make sure that play comes first. And stay focused on the long term. Stay focused on the macro, and just find where on the macro and micro do you exist. Macro being long term, micro being short term. I've heard a couple good Mac quotes. Mad quotes, dude. So macro patience, micro action, and then another variation of that I've heard is macro optimism, micro pessimism. And what that means is the same thing. Every day be working towards something like it won't work out, but in the long scheme of things, no, not just be faithful, not just hope, but know that they're going to work out. But funny. Always be working like they're not going to work out.
Ben Shapiro has a quote that he's a pessimist, which means that in the long run, he's always right, which is exactly the opposite of what you just said. But hey, look,
I'm not in politics.
I like hanging out with optimists. Optimists are a lot more fun.
Yeah, I mean, and then that comes back to that idea of meritocracy.
Yeah.
You got to have optimists around you. I don't want to call them pessimists, but you got to have informationalists around you. And then you just got to circumvent whatever that is, because again, remember, now there is an argument to be made about nature versus nurture and where that spectrum is, but environment plays a large part on your life. You are a product of the 5 people you surround yourself most. Clint is one of those people for me, but I would say Joe Rogan is as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I listen to any more conversation than I do with Joe Rogan.
That's right.
So whatever you read, whatever information you take, whoever you talk to, just be aware that is the information that is coming into you. And I'm in Atlanta. I'm a hip hop head, so I've got a lot of music coming in and out of my ear.
Bumping the table when we
do that. Yeah. Okay, so no more doing that.
Bumping the table.
Okay, that was just to show you guys. Well, we're not going to do it anymore. But no, so it's just like you just got to be aware. I'm sure you've heard that, and you have a very similar keen awareness of who enters. I almost want to call it your self-imposed echo chamber.
Yeah.
Is that fair to call it? And why? Yeah. Why would you want a self-imposed?
Your internal echo chamber.
Why would you want an internal echo chamber?
Well, input equals output. So if your input, and it's not that you want, it's that you have one. Whether you want one or don't, you're stuck with it.
True.
So working within the confines of your echo chamber, and maybe for you, it's 7 people. Maybe for you, it's up to 10 people. It's the people that you talk to the most frequently. If your input is all negative, you're going to notice your output starts becoming negative too. If your input is all or at least mostly positive, the mostly positive stuff is bouncing around your echo chamber. And by your echo chamber, it's that internal dialogue you're having in your head. It's the way you complain about something to yourself, or judge somebody, or have an issue with something that really isn't that big of a deal. Or it's the way you give yourself self-praise, or you reward yourself in your head for something good, as opposed to self-criticism. It's self-love.
Yeah. And to tie it back in on a macro, that's where, you know, you got to be able to understand that you're echo chambered in your environment too. And being open-minded means being able to explore other things, other events, anything that's not consistent dialogue between your mind and other people in your echo chamber. It's always, just think about it like this. What if your life could only be lived in your Instagram discovery page? If there were these algorithms that only put the same people and the same ideas in front of you all the time, how could you be open-minded and exploring and finding different truths that occur not just in America, but all around the world, and with all different kinds of people and all different kind of experiences?
Self-compassion is going to make you more compassionate to others. Hanging out with open-minded people is going to make you more open-minded to new experiences, new ideas, trying new food, any number of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've been socially conditioned and socially programmed since forever, especially if, you know, I'm 26 years old.
Since the government started educating children, they've been programming us to believe all kinds of things. What was it that happened? We had, you know, this is actually on a crazier note than the hustle and the grind. We had a conversation one time about how the dairy farm, I have, like, my earliest remember of a dairy farm was on a school field trip, and yours was as well. And then we thought, what if that's how they get us to buy Mayfield? You remember that?
Yes.
That's exactly what they do in Mayfield. Hey, have a school field trip. And now I will forever associate milk with Mayfield or Publix brand.
My water is Mayfield.
That's, you know what? Yeah. Operandic conditioning.
No, absolutely. And the things we watched, and I mean, before the age of information, and I believe that can be defined as easily as when the internet was made mainstream. But before that, it was, how could you refute what you're being told? How could you even be aware enough to refute what you're being told by government, large corporations? Not that these are atrocious entities that are trying to ruin your life. I wouldn't say that about all of them, but I would say that now we have ways to access information to find our own truths. And with that, you know, actually Ben Shapiro was talking about this once, or maybe Jordan Peterson was. One of them was talking about how anytime you have a tool where a human can express themselves, there's going to be the extremely good and the extremely bad. The internet is that, a gun is that, money is that.
Distribution.
Exactly. And Lao Tzu talks about it in Tao Te Ching, the Tao Te Ching. You know what I'm saying. But anyway, he talks about how there's an animalistic quality in us that we're social creatures. We need community. We need environment. It's in our biology. But then on the macro, because we're humans, it doesn't work out. Because as soon as you start to be a part of a community, you defend that with your honor. For example, I didn't know about fraternities before I came to college, but within 2 weeks of being in college, as soon as I was pledging a fraternity, all the other ones were my enemies. And it's the same thing. As soon as you identify yourself with a community, which again is innate and something that we have to do on an individual level.
We're all looking for a tribe.
Yes.
A place to belong that's, and honestly, exclusive too. Yeah. There's something about the exclusivity makes it more, makes it a scarcity.
Yeah. I mean, it does. It's like,
it increases the value by the principle of scarcity.
That's it right there.
Not everybody can join this club.
It's hard to walk in the woods alone. It's easier to do it with people behind you.
Yeah.
And that would be like the biggest like imagery of that. Like it's just more fun. Like I don't want to be rich without all my friends being rich with me. Like J. Cole talks about it in his song Middle Child. Like I would rather have an army going to fight another army than going to fight an army by myself.
Yeah.
It's an innate thing for us to want. But then whenever you have these communities, and this is where it happens everywhere, you have radicals. And whenever you have radicals, there's always going to be confliction with the radicals of another community or group. And so that's why on the micro communities, in the sense of that, is so important, but on the macro, it'll never work out. And again, that's just a truth that we have to accept as humans and be able to oscillate through with forward progression at all times, as opposed to, you know, the extremely goods and the extremely bads. But that's a great piece of literature. Have you read it, The Doubted Chain?
I have not, but I'm about to.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting because it's a guy who lived on the outskirts of society, a philosopher who lived on the outskirts of society and really documented what he viewed of as the movie of civilization.
Watching it from the distance.
Yeah.
Watching it from the hill.
Exactly. So, I love that book. That's it's up there with The Art of War.
That's the next. Well, when you said Lao Tzu, I was thinking of Sun Tzu. Right off the bat. Yeah. Next read. Challenge to everybody listening or not listening. Challenge to everybody. Read more. Read often. It is the brain's way of working out. And if you're not going to read, consume more audio, but you should probably read as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, should we keep this going? Should we cut it off?
So in the future, we are going to have longer podcasts. For the time being, we are limited by battery and memory space. That won't be the case next week.
Okay.
For now, we're going to cut this off. Shout out to everybody that has made the journey possible. Much more to come. You got a closing note?
Yeah, check out Carve 3D on Instagram, CARV 3D.
And follow this at Hustle Up, HSTLUP.
Thanks. Sayonara.